Good morning, everybody. It is nearly 10 o'clock this morning here in Alberta. Welcome to day 29 of spiritual healthcare. It's hard to believe we're almost at day 30. Like, we are literally almost at a month of doing this. This is amazing. It is good to be logging on this morning and chatting with all of you. I hope you guys had a great day yesterday. It's always nice to see everybody. Today is going to be such a interesting session, I think, this morning, because we're going to be chatting about a couple of really interesting things. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Victoria. One of them being a very famous case from the 1970s that was made into a movie in the 1970s called The Entity. I don't know if any of you guys... Good morning, Laura. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the movie or not. It's not a highly known film, but man, it was so striking. I think it disturbed a lot of people when it came out. But the case is fascinating, so I'm really excited to be able to delve into that a little bit, because it's worth breaking down what happened. A very good friend of mine was the lead investigator on that case as well. So I've talked at length with him about it on the phone in the past, and it's absolutely interesting. Good morning, Jan. If you guys are having like audio issues or video issues or anything like that, just like log out and then log back in, or like refresh the page and stuff like that. Refreshing the page usually works really, really well. So if you guys have audio issues, then that's usually how to fix it. Good morning, Patricia. Good morning, Des. It's nice to see everybody. As I say, today is going to be super cool because, as I say, it's the topic is really interesting. The Entity case was pretty fascinating when it comes to the broad overview of the intricacies of what this covers, and we're gonna go into that, and the opinion of, as I say, a very good friend of mine, Dr. Barry Taff, who was the investigator on that case, along with Carrie Gaynor, who is he's amazing, very well known in the field of parapsychology, and these guys are definitely the real deal. So I very much trust the information that comes from comes from both of them, and their story is amazing. But what's so interesting about the Entity case is the background and the very deliberate, I think, mirror that we'll see between the haunting and the case itself. Good morning, Mark. Nice to see you guys. Good morning, Darren. It's so good to see everybody. This is awesome. As I say, I'm so looking forward to delving into this today. I hope you guys had a great night and day yesterday. Good morning, Sarah. I hope it's as nice there wherever you guys are as it is here, because it is really beautiful outside right now. It's warming up in Alberta finally. It always takes forever here. I'm telling you, it's just, we have this long winter, and then we get like a little bit of spring, and then summer. We have construction season, and then winter, and then that's it. That's all we get. So yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. So I hope everybody's weather is doing as well. I think it's going to be interesting in the next little while, once the social isolation, starts to run into summer a little bit. Hopefully everybody's still, maintains the staying in, or at least the social distancing, and whatnot. Super important. So hopefully everybody will stay in. All right, so let's start talking about the Entity case. Let's start talking about Entity case. This is such an interesting story. It's so interesting. And the case itself started in 1974. And what's so fascinating about this was that it started in Culver City. I should mention that as well. This was a U.S.-based case. And it was a single mom, young single mom who was living with her 3 sons and a daughter. And she ended up allegedly claiming that she was being attacked by some sort of like disincarnate entity, that there was something that was actually physically assaulting and attacking her. And she ended up reaching out to, as I say, a good friend of mine, Dr. Barry Taff, really reputable investigator. He used to work for UCLA and their parapsychology department. And and Carrie Gaynor. And the two of them ended up looking into her claims of being assaulted by this entity. And she claimed that there were 3 entities. And when they came to her place, like, they were very intrigued because her allegations of assault and whatnot even went into the realm of rape. Like, it was really severe. She was claiming that, you know, these entities were physically assaulting her and attacking her and beating her up and all sorts of things. And her kids verified it. Her kids said, you know, we've watched this. This is horrifying. You know, this is really scary. We don't know what to do. So they're feeling lost. So all of this is happening. So when Barry and Carrie Gaynor get to her house, they are, of course, looking for the overall picture of where this client is, right? Where this client is in her head. You know, our space, as we've talked about before, our space reflects, you know, what's going on in our minds, which is why it's important to be able to declutter and stuff like that, and keep those safe spaces. And her place was a disaster. It was a big mess. Hey, Victoria, if you could let Laura know to try to refresh her screen too, that would be awesome, because oftentimes that will fix the sound and stuff like that. So if you guys are having trouble with sound or stalling or anything, just refresh your page. That usually works. So the entity case is interesting because, as I say, there's severe attacks that were going on, or that were being reported. The kids were reporting seeing these really bizarre lights and apparitions and things like that. So all of this stuff is going on, bizarre poltergeist activity, and of course these physical assaults. So when Barry and Carrie both got into the house, as I say, her place was a disaster, and they really quickly learned that not only was the house in chaos, but she was having instances and issues with substance abuse, and a number of other problems as well, mental health issues and stuff like that. So when we start to look at the breakdown of Doris Bither was the name of the client. When we start to look at the breakdown, and as Barry did as well, of this client's state of mind, and all of the things that were going on around her, we can start to see the makeup of where some of this activity, this haunting activity comes from. And it's really important. So our clients, our cases, where they are mentally, all of that, everything that we're projecting around us, we have to be conscious of, and we have to be aware that it's going to play this role, right? It's going to play a role. So as they're looking into it and they realize, that she's having, she's had issues with substance abuse, she's had issues with this emotional chaos, a lot of mental illness and things like that, they also discover that she actually just left a number of abusive relationships as well. So she's dealing with a lot on her plate. She was a victim of domestic violence, and coming out of those situations, nothing within Doris's experience had ever really had time to heal, right? So everything that she's coming out of, she's now dealing with. So as this case continued, and this is where I think things get really interesting, is that as I say, the Sons repeatedly said that they were witnessing the attacks that were going on. Barry Taff and Carrie Gaynor were very interested in being able to not only study the phenomenon that was going on, but understand so clearly that this was such a reflection of where Doris was internally. So when they brought in cameras, and this is where things get really interesting, they brought in cameras, they brought in a whole AV crew, making sure they were recording absolutely everything. They ended up catching some of the most significant photographs in the history of paranormal phenomenon that have ever been reported, and they ended up being published in Photography magazine. People were blown away, and I'll be posting those photos and Barry's article and blog on this on the Entity Seeker Facebook page, so you can read it from the horse's mouth. It's very interesting, and see the photographs as well. And what they caught was that they were sitting in a room with Doris, because Doris believed that if she antagonized or she spoke to this entity, which they nicknamed Mr. Who's It, all the time, if she spoke to it enough, that it would manifest. So Carrie and Barry would be sitting in the room with her, and they asked, if you're here, show us that you're here, because, we're not sure if you're real, show us that you're here. And what they ended up seeing, which started off as these little lights, ended up exploding into these long arcs of light, which started twisting and moving about the room. And originally they had started just on the wall. And what was neat about this was that when Carrie turned around and asked, hey, if you're here, come off the wall, he was really concerned that someone was shining a flashlight, somebody was faking it, this kind of thing. And as he asked that, these lights lifted off the wall and were spinning and moving in the center of the space. So the photographs that were caught were actually of one of these arcs of light that was in the middle of the room. And what made the photograph so significant is that within the photo, you can see the corner of the wall. Like, you can see the wall that was perpendicular, and the light arc was in front of that perpendicular wall. So the significance of something like this is that if that light had have been broadcasted onto that surface, it would have been bent, and it wasn't. This arc was floating in mid-space. So it was a fascinating photograph. As I say, it ended up published in Photography magazine. It was pretty significant. And they also caught orbs of light that were moving around, and eventually what looked like the beginning of an apparition as well. They caught sort of the head and a little bit of the shoulder and things like that. Now, Frank de Felitta, who was a good friend of Doris and a noted author, he was in there experiencing a lot of this stuff with them, and he ended up writing the book, which then became the film, The Entity. So if you guys ever get a chance to pick it up or read it or anything like that, it's absolutely mind-blowing, and it is worth reading. But what's interesting to me about the Entity case in general is the fact that, here we've got somebody, as we've talked about before, we've got somebody who is struggling with trauma, right? Like anytime we get a case where there is substance abuse or anything like that, that person is dealing with some sort of trauma. This is not, people don't move and gravitate towards that type of thing when they're not trying to soothe something that's gone on. And in Doris's case, it very much sounded like it had much to do with the abuse in her past. I'm guessing that it probably went a lot further back than just the abuse of men that she had left. And when we start to look at a client's life, like Doris, we can start to build what exactly has gone on and what needs to get healed. This is the great thing about negative entities, is the fact that when we look at them, they are always such a direct reflection of something going on with us. So this is the great thing about them, even though they can be just horrible and just terrifying to be around. The good thing about them is that they are such accurate indicators. And if we've got something going on with them, and we're experiencing something that is a negative somewhere, so much of the time they are such a direct reflection of something that's going on within us. And in Doris's case, this is such a great example of that. She was, as I say, struggling with a lot of physical abuse and things like that in her history that had just simply never, ever gotten addressed. And so many of us end up that way, right? It's easier, when we're not taught coping tools, when we're not taught what it is that we deserve, when we're not able to, or we feel like we're not able to go after that, then, we have to be able to turn around and take a really hard look at who we are. Darren wants to know how close is the movie to the book, and I don't remember. I haven't read the book in quite a while. As far as I know, it's pretty close. I know Frank de Felitta did worked on the film too, so I think it's relatively parallel. I know the ending of the movie. This is kind of an interesting little tidbit. So the ending of the movie was kind of the dream of the people who worked at UCLA. Okay, so this is kind of neat. A little bit of movie magic, but it's pretty interesting. So when they decided that in the film, they decide that the only way that they're going to trap this intelligence, trap this entity, is that they're going to lure it into the lab. They're going to have Doris come into a lab that was basically set up like a house, like a bedroom or an apartment. And they were going to basically instigate another attack where Doris would get chased by the entity, run into a bedroom, and the entity would get stuck in this little room where it would essentially be blasted with some sort of chemical that would freeze the particles, okay? So this is, as I say, Hollywood magic and whatnot. But when Barry was asked, when Carrie Gaynor were asked, what, if you could do anything, if you had all the money, if you could, create whatever experiment you wanted in regards to this case, in regards to an entity, what would you do? How would you study it? And what they came up with was the idea that, well, I wonder if we could freeze it. I wonder if it was built on particles or it's built in particles and things like that. What if we could? If the entity has mass, why not be able to actually freeze the particles? So it's interesting. It's an interesting theory. And when we take a look at, the idea, for example, that entities they can trigger things, they can, move objects and pick things up and interact with other masses, kind of makes you wonder. I wonder if, something like that would work. So anyway, in the movie, they decided that that's what they were going to try. And of course it worked. There has to be, a happy ending to the story, and things like that. In real life, the case went a lot differently. And in real life, Doris actually ended up still struggling with this phenomenon. She really did. And years and years and years later, she was still fighting with the phenomenon that was going on. But when we start to look at her journey and her journey throughout, the healing processes and things like that, the damn thing is that when you don't heal it up, when you don't stop the bleeding, then that type of stuff just doesn't end. This doesn't stop. You have to be able to stop the bleeding at its source. The idea that, we can put a Band-Aid on it and whatnot, it looks pretty, but Band-Aids are meant to hide things, right? Band-Aids are meant to hide things. And, it's great when, there's no infection or something like that. But when we get trauma, like abusive relationships or abuse in the past or things going on, that trauma, honestly, it's like an infection. And when we don't stop and heal it and get that infection out, and purge that, then we end up with a great big mess later, because it starts to ooze and there's nothing we can do. So when we look at things like the Doris Blither case from 1974, I think this is such a telling experience of somebody who, extreme experience, obviously, but somebody who, didn't heal that trauma up and was experiencing it over and over and over again, in a different way. So it's an interesting case. As I say, if you guys get a chance to see the movie, do it. It's very, very interesting. It's pretty cool. Okay. So that being said, crazy, but as I say, also interesting. The other thing I should add to that is that if you guys are interested in more of Barry's research and cases, check out barrytaff.net. I will post a link to that on the Entity Seeker page as well once we're done here. And you guys can go through his blog, because his blog is is super cool. He's such a smart guy, and his research at UCLA was just absolutely unprecedented. They did some pretty cool stuff there. So one of the first parapsychology labs in the States, actually. So yeah, it's pretty neat. All right. So I wanted to give you guys a process, because we talked about, a little bit about movies and a little bit about happy endings and things like that, and how Hollywood gets to do that, right? Like, they get to take a case or a story or whatever, and they write their script for it. They write a happy ending for it. And I love this process because it really starts to work us out of those negative mindsets of sort of that catastrophic thinking that we can fall into. Okay, especially when we get to things like COVID-19, the trauma that's going on right now with people. We have to really we have to start looking at what we're creating from this moment going forward. And one of the ways to do it is to sit down. We've talked about it's a journal thing. I'm telling you, this journal, it's amazing. If you don't have one, grab one, because there's so much work that we can work through. Writing things down, guys, it's powerful. It's really, really powerful. It's like, they call it spelling for a reason, right? And it really does create. It really does. So what I want to encourage you guys to try is writing out a scenario, maybe it has to do with this right now. Maybe it has to do with the current situation we're in. Maybe it has to do with, like a better relationship with your kids. Maybe it has to do whatever that is for you. But write it out, script it out, and then give it a happy ending. What does it look like? Pretend you're a Hollywood director. What does that happy ending start to look like? And the great thing about this is that the more you start writing it down, the more you start focusing in on what that looks like, feeling what that that experience would be from the inside out, you start to work towards creating that in real life. Because whatever we're feeling, whatever's going on within us is really what ends up becoming in front of us. And I highly encourage to be able to stop the catastrophic thinking, is to start writing down, what is that happy ending? What does that look like? What does it look like? And most people, they haven't even gone there. A lot of people haven't even gone there because they think that no matter what they do, no matter what happens, that it is going to turn out badly, or everything's going to fall apart on them because everything fell apart in the past. And we tend to use our past as a reference for our experiences going forward. So I want to start encouraging everybody, start thinking about, what is it about that happy ending? What is it? What did you want it to look like? And start putting energy into that rather than the catastrophe that often we make up in our heads, because I think we all do it. We all do it. We've all stood there, in our own little zone, and we're having an argument with somebody who we wish we could argue with. We can't. We've all done it. How many of you guys have stood in the shower in the morning and you've won an argument? You won an argument in the shower with yourself, right? So this is a great way to start to channel this into a new way, and start creating, what is that happy ending? What is that for you? So it's pretty cool. So it's really interesting. Des says, I'm not big in the trap a ghost theory, but I guess anything is possible. Yeah, and I agree. It's a bizarre idea. I don't think it will. I don't know if they'll ever get funding to attempt something like that or anything. I have no idea. Parapsychology has the worst time getting funding just in general. So I don't think we're going to be seeing freezing ghosts anytime too soon. I don't think it's going to happen. But there we go. So I wanted to introduce you guys to a new author today. And I absolutely love, it's a couple of books actually that one of my best friends gave me for my birthday. I think it was birthday or Christmas, a little while ago. And thank you, Patricia, for all the books. This is a book by a fellow named Humble the Poet. Okay. And it's life lessons without the bullshit. And Humble the Poet he's fantastic. He's Canadian. He is absolutely got a brilliant mind. He uses his life and his stories to inspire other people. He has experienced a lot of things like racism. He's experienced, having to work through the insight of his own journey, and he likes to be able to share it with other people. So if you guys get a chance to check out Humble the Poet, I definitely recommend it. So our reading today comes from one of his books. as I say, life lessons without the bullshit. And it's number 99 for those of you guys who do have the book. And it is called Gravity. So I want to read you this one. Success isn't about waiting around for results. It's about having a relationship with the process that leads to the results. This fast food culture we have doesn't help much to strengthen our patience. We want things to happen now and get frustrated when they don't materialize quickly enough. If you have high expectations coupled with low patience, be prepared to be continually disappointed. Don't be afraid of the time that it takes to accomplish things. The time, however spent, will pass regardless. Nature doesn't move at our pace. We're subject to its movements and the laws that govern it. The more we understand and respect the nature of time, the better equipped we are to benefit from what it can offer. The moment we begin to understand and respect how gravity works is when we begin to fly. Love this. I love this. I love Humble the Poet. I think his words are so on point about so much. It's about recognizing where we are, not putting that Band-Aid, right? We just talked about that with the Doris Blither case, not putting the Band-Aid over the damage or the trauma or the hurt or whatever it is, acknowledging where we are and then moving from that place to where we want to be. It's just so important to be able to do that. And just like Humble has said here, it's a matter of we can't fly unless we understand what gravity is and how that works, right? So I think that he's brilliant. He really is brilliant. And he's Canadian. I love that too. That's cool. So yeah, so check out Humble the Poet. It's really, really, really awesome. I wanted to give you guys an awesome to-do today as well. If you guys want to experience something interesting. So if you guys are feeling daring at all and you feel kind of artsy, the Museum of Modern Art in New York is offering classes. They're offering classes. And they have dumped 5 new online classes: photography, fashion, there's one on modern art, and there's a couple of other ones as well. But they are offering them for free. So you can actually attend classes from the Museum of Modern Art in New York City and graduate from these classes. I think it's the coolest thing. For those of you guys who are into investigations and stuff like that, I would recommend like taking the photography class, understanding that kind of thing. And for those of you guys who just, are interested in, doing something a little bit more artsy with meditation and stuff like that, as I say, they've got classes on just, modern art and all of that kind of thing. And they are totally free. Totally free. So cool. So I'm going to post a link to that as well today, so that you guys have them. And I have to mention, tonight, America, is the 2nd season premiere of Paranormal 911 on Travel Channel. Travel Channel, America. Canada, as I say, has already had season 2 for a while, so it's kind of old news for us. But I am excited for you guys to see the 2nd season of Paranormal 911. As I say, Travel Channel. It's super cool. Jan wants to know where she can get Humble the Poet's books. Yeah, I will send you a link. So you can find that. But yeah, so I hope you guys, if you have Travel Channel, tune in tonight, check your local listings for when that is going to be on in your neighborhood, in your time zone. So it should be pretty cool. But anyway, our health affirmations, everybody. Everybody take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. And there's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. Everybody take a breath. Thank you guys for another amazing morning of spiritual health care. Tomorrow we've got some great things on the table. I don't want to give too much away. If you guys have more questions, please send them to me, text me, tweet me on Twitter, and all of the past questions, or all of the past classes, can be found on youtube.com/entityseeker or on entityseeker.ca, the official website. So if you have missed a class or you want to go back on something or things like that, then go that route. On both the Entity Seeker website and the Entity Seeker Facebook page, if you guys don't have a journal or something like that and you're looking to order one, I've got there's two different ones that you can order from there too, if you're looking for one, because I say we do a lot of journal work and whatnot, so that's available. And yeah, we've got lots more coming up, so please send in your questions. If you've got topics or show ideas that you want to discuss or you want to talk about, send me those too, because I want to know what you guys want to chat about. There's so much on the table. We're not going to run out of phenomenon, right? To talk about. We're just not going to run out. So please send it all in, and yeah, let me know. What do you guys want to discuss? Do you want me to go back on something that we've talked about before? All of that. So I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody. I love getting your messages. You always act like you're such a bother, and you're totally not. Just, send me messages, tell me what you guys want to chat about, and we will do it. We will bring it to spiritual healthcare. That being said, have a wonderful afternoon, you guys. I hope you have a great day. I will see you tomorrow here at 10 a.m. Mountain Time for spiritual healthcare. Don't forget about Paranormal 911 tonight on Travel Channel if you're in the States. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you have lots to say about it tomorrow. Well, you always do. So anyway, thank you guys again. Have an amazing afternoon, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.